OTAs are in the books and minicamp is here. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Edge Room, rebuilt around a werewolf. And the Bears think they've closed the gap. We're going to cover them in the Know Your Enemy segment. We've got the data, we've got the history, and the receipts. Let's get into it. Forward down the field.
Busted outside left. Jameer down to the 10. Jameer to the 5. Jameer to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
And off Berry. Surge to the left side. Breaks the tackle. And he will take it in. Touchdown.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. That's what I'm talking about. It is caught. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Oh, baby, what a play that time. Aiden Hutchinson read that and blew it up. Big time stand by that defense.
All right, here we go. Lions, Gray Mains. It's Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. We go live on all of the tubes. So if you are here, like our friend Wanda Rich, who's already chiming in the chat, let us know where you're chiming in from. We're excited to go live here every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you're catching us on replay, and a lot of people do, whether it's audio or video, jump down to the comments. Let us know, if you've got any comments as we go along, because we've got a lot of stuff to cover. And so before we dig into all of the goodness that is the Detroit Lions, their defensive edge and the length situation, the OTAs, week 3, and now minicamp, I want to introduce you to my co-hosts, my co-pilots for this evening. I'm gonna mix some things up. First and foremost, the gentleman on the bottom of your screen, right in the center of your earballs, the Chief Intelligence Officer of Lions Optimism, Dr. Brent Kreider, DBC. You sound so clear. There's no congestion. I think you might be 100%. Are we 100%?
It's the allergies, guys.
Oh.
It's absolutely the allergies. But all good. The Lions are in training camp. Dan's going to run down a lot on that, and then I'll jump in with some thoughts on the Edge Room. It's going to be a great show.
Should be awesome. And my other co-pilot, partner in crime from the great state of Ohio, Dan Keener. DK, how are we feeling tonight, man?
Feeling good. Yeah, I'm not sick. I don't have allergies. Lots of news coming out. We're not going to cover it today, but, I'm here. I'm ready to talk.
Awesome. So let's just get right into it. We've got a lot of stuff to cover tonight, but we always start our show with the most up-to-date news to get you all the way up to speed on our Detroit Lions. We start it first with the rundown.
Well, thanks, Chris. Big topic this week in college football, and of course with moron talking head national writers who don't do any research, is that Brandon Sorsby has left NCAA, left behind his lawsuit, has stopped trying to pursue playing for Texas Tech, and is going to enter the NFL supplemental draft, assuming the NFL lets him in, which is not a given. If you don't know who Sorsby is, this is the kid who bet on his own team while at Indiana. He continued betting at Cincinnati, something like 2,900 gambling bets over with like $90,000 bets. Committed multiple illegal acts, including underage gambling, which is the lightest of them, and 2 potential felonies in wire fraud and also proxy betting, which are big no-nos. So if anyone, I'll be surprised if anyone drafts this kid, but maybe there's a team that takes a chance on him because supposedly he's a first-round talent. But my biggest message is for all the talking heads that keep trying to link him to the Lions because of Teddy and Goff's age. Yeah, dude, it's called no turds policy. If you get past that, in 2023, the Lions were just punked harder than anyone else by the NFL for gambling in the facility. We lost Jamison Williams for 6 games, reduced to 4. Someone else was also suspended that we ended up letting go. And then we cut Quintez Cephas and another player, I think CJ Moore, immediately when it came out. So Stanley Berryhill was the other player. So we're not touching this kid, so just stop it. It's just dumb. It's for clicks, and 2 and 2 does not equal 8, which is what you idiots are trying to do. So
was Brendan
anyway,
even like a great? I don't remember him even being like a super talented quarterback, to be honest.
he's like a low 60% passer, but he's got wheels. He'll put up every year at Indiana, Cincinnati. He's put up about 6 to 7 rushing touchdowns and 400 to 500 yards rushing, on top of maybe mid to high 2,000 yards passing. So I mean, he's definitely a prospect. Had he not had this issue, he would be drafted. The question is, how they do is they draft players in the first round and second round that probably should go in the third, but he has talent. He just, there's so many red flags. This kid, it's not even funny.
Not a fit. So don't hit it. Don't add us, Lions fan. He's not a fit.
Yes. I will eat a blank sheet of paper if we take him in the supplemental draft on live on camera. I was going to say my hat, but it's easier to eat paper. So anyway, all right. Hey, this fine looking gentleman on the screen here is Christian Izian, and that is our brand new safety. His birthday was the other day. He is now 26 years old. So while he signed for a 1-year deal, again, Brad going out, grabbing guys that are just hitting their prime, bringing them in to see what they can do. And if we like them, we'll keep them. So
already making an impact at minicamp and today at OTAs and today at minicamp.
That is correct. Next group, this handsome couple here, as you can tell by that glorious mustache, is Sam Laporta and his wife Callahan. And they just announced that they're expecting their first child. And while that is wonderful in its own right, if you go about 8 months out from now, maybe 7, that's after the end of next season. So as a Lions fan, that's even better.
Winning.
Yes. I don't have a picture of Frank Ragnow, but I just brought up his charity that he hosts. For the first time since the whole retirement, unretirement, and then re-retirement, Ragnow spoke to the media. He gave a really great set of interviews to multiple outlets, kind of explaining where he was at, how he was feeling, which, there's a lot of sense of guilt letting down the team. He didn't intend to show up and not, and then have to retire again. The injury just, I guess, if I read it correctly, he injured himself while he was trying to get ready. Yeah. Didn't think it was that bad, but it just reinforces what a class act he is. He will always be one of the Lions' all-time greats. He may end up being on somebody's Mount Rushmore that might be coming up shortly that we're not sure of here in the next couple weeks, but maybe just as a hint. But his showdown here benefits a good cause. So it is his 4th annual, so he will continue to do that. So if you're into trap and skeet, maybe look at joining it next year and contributing to a worthy cause. This fine, strapping young lad is Isaac Tesla. And he thought he was going to get through the entirety of last year without having to do a rookie dinner for the wide receiver room. And unfortunately, him and Dominic Lovett, and I don't know who was the other one, Meeks, maybe.
Yeah, Meeks.
Meeks. They were wrong.
And were they wrong?
Like late in the season, I guess Amon-Ra St. Brown picked out a restaurant and said, "Hey, we're going out. You guys are paying the tab." Tesla got there late because of traffic. When he got there, apparently the table was full of food and they were ordering their most expensive bottles and so on and so on. And I believe they got the bill. And by the way, it was at Sexy Steak in downtown Detroit. So if you happen to go there, shout out to them. We are not sponsored by them, but their amazing menu looks amazing. Yes, we would lovely be sponsored by you. I believe the bill showed up at this table, and I'm a little unclear, and I'll let Brent kind of explain it because I know he read it a little more than I did, but I was a little unclear. But apparently the bill showed up and it was like in the 40 grand range, and these guys' credit cards probably had maxed out values. Maybe he
couldn't pay his portion.
Nobody can pay their portion. I don't think their credit.
No, he forgot his wallet.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, he forgot his wallet, and then the other guys who were UDFAs. A 7th rounder and UDFA, they couldn't pay their wallet. So Brent, what was the end result of that? I saw 40 grand, and I saw $4 grand. So I was a little unclear on that.
Yeah, so they got the receipt. The guys set them up, right? Which is part of the rookie hazing. They got the receipt and it was $41,466. And Tesla was talking about how they were ordering bottles of wine. And just for what it's worth, when Crystal and I went to Burns Steakhouse and we did the wine tour, they've got the world's largest private, or I guess the U.S.'s largest private wine reserve, and there was a bottle in there for $300,000. So I was thinking that, that doesn't surprise me. So, they get this check and come to find out they were messing with them. The check was right around $4,000. $4,000 is still a lot, but Tesla forgot his wallet, and Meeks had to call to get special approval on his credit card to charge that much, and it was quite a hoot.
They're just watching him squirm that whole time.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, man, to be young and rich. All right, what do we got next here? Oh, this gentleman here. You guys ever see that meme of that riot cop that's just sitting there with big old gorilla arms bending his bar, with his helmet on? This is the first picture we have seen of Skylar Gill Howard, our 6 foot, 285-pound defensive lineman.
This isn't
And
AI.
that dude's arms, this is not AI. I was so impressed when I saw that dude's just fucking monster. Excuse me, I said a bad word. His monster arms. I'm just like, okay, this guy is gonna wreck some people. I was impressed, needless to say. Otherwise, I wouldn't have it on here, but it was kind of cool.
Awesome.
And no, we're not bringing up Mr. Stafford. We're actually looking at number 3 on the left and number 2 on the right. Our own Jared Goff, the guy that is constantly underrated, constantly overlooked, constantly disparaged as being a over the hill, wash quarterback, has once again shown that he is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He was third in red zone pass attempts, which of course is from the 20 in, and he was second to Matthew Stafford, who was the league MVP in red zone touchdown passes with 25. So he had a really good touchdown to pass attempt ratio here. I think it was second behind Lawrence there, and really close to Stafford as well. So, just once again, every time that someone tells you Goff's a bad quarterback, there's just oodles and oodles of stats and things like this that bring up that, yes, the guy is a good quarterback.
Let's get him a ring, right? We get him a ring, and then it shuts a lot of people up. So.
Yep, that is correct.
Oh, my goodness.
What on earth is that? This is the latest in our stadium series of food, which I love to do.
Oh my God.
That is not a hot dog, by the way. That this by the way is the Sugarland Space Cowboys down in Texas, which is the AAA farm club of the Houston Astros. Okay. That, my friends, is a split open Twinkie with a Twix bar in the middle of it, sesame seeds sprinkled on the outside, in yellow and red icing drizzled on top to mimic ketchup and mustard. It is called the Galactic Glizzy.
I thought they should call this the Heart Stopper.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I think Peter from Deadpool got both of the diabetes from eating this thing.
Right.
That was his superpower.
I mean, don't try this at home. I mean, seriously, but you can. You slice open a Twinkie bun, you throw in a Twix bar, sprinkle some sesame seeds. I don't know. I guess maybe
that
that's
makes it
the
healthy.
Salt. Yeah, exactly.
It's for the bun,
Put a little kale in there, and then all of a sudden you feel healthy. God, Sugarland Space Cowboys. Good on you. You're going to have to expand your seats for next season.
Yes. So with that, let's go to something a little more important.
Hey,
the taller boy. Yeah, I saw this thing. I'm like, boy, that can's going to get awfully warm by the time you get finished with it. Well, it's really not a can of beer. It is a can cooler. So you could put 3 Coors Light cans in there. This is another one of those World Cup promos that's out there. Coors Light is selling this on their website in their, I guess, novelties section.
Yeah.
And they went on sale last week. But I like Coors Light is I like that watered down beer, but there is nothing better than an ice cold Coors Light when you just want something quick and dirty.
I wonder if you can order a taller boy and a Galactic Glizzy at the stadium. You think that's possible? Like together?
How many galactic
would you
glizzies
make
can
it
you
out?
fit in the taller boy? That's the question.
That's trivia
Is
tonight.
it just me, or when we were young, did we all drink Keystone Light because it tasted just like Coors Light
I drank
and
Keystone Light because it was cheap.
No.
cheaper? Yeah, it was like half the price.
No.
I mean, when you're in college, you start off with like Beast and Beast Light, and Natty Light is like your
Natty Light, yeah.
freshman level beer, and then you graduate to like Keystone Light, and we're older, so we can bring out like Ice House. You guys remember that crap?
Oh, geez. But if you were, I should say growing up, but like when I was drinking age in Detroit, in the area of Detroit, it was Stroh's.
Yes.
So there you
Schlitz, Stroh's.
Won't be Schlitz anymore. We covered that 3 weeks ago.
No. I'm saying it back in the day.
go. Yeah, back in the day.
Falstaff
and Drury's for
I
don't even know about it. Mike, you're going to have to explain on that one. Falstaff and Drury's. I don't know.
Backwoods of Central Michigan makes that stuff, I guess.
Right.
I don't know. And that brings us to the OTA recap week 3 sign here. And I'm going to hand this over to Brett and let him get us started on everything that happened last week, starting with the new nickname for Mr. Hutchinson.
You guys have already given that away, so I'm not going to steal, what's already been stolen, the thunder on that one. But
this is good because I know I wanted to lead you in on this because you and I are fans of a particular college football team. Dan is a fan of a different college football team. They just happen to be big rivals, right? And so a lot of what was coming out of last week in the OTAs, especially the pressers with Dan Campbell and Kelvin Sheppard, was the talk of the defensive end and edge positions, especially outside of Hutch, right? And everybody was just kind of, obviously Derek Moore, but then everybody's kind of talking about how Derek Moore may be spelling Hutch a little bit more, which is a good thing, of course. And there was a lot of conversations about length, right? And how long these guys are, whether it's Wonnum and his, 35-inch arms, and Peyton Turner, and of course Derek Moore, and all of these arm lengths. But Kelvin Sheppard spoke about Aiden Hutchinson, and he used a particular nickname, for Hutch, but it wasn't Wolverine, which was kind of a surprise. What are your thoughts there on the Kelvin Sheppard comments, the Dan Campbell comments as it relates to Aiden Hutchinson and that edge room?
Well, werewolves, Wolfman. I mean, I love the nickname. He'll forever be a Wolverine, right? We get that. Just like every Ohio State player that graduates a Buckeye. Sorry. The truth of the matter is the Lions' length and the size that we have on the defensive edge is much more pronounced than what it was last year and in the previous few years. So over the last 3 to 4 years, how many podcasts and Detroit media folks have not talked about the need to add edge and depth and size at the defensive end position and the outside linebacker position that serves in the third those third down rush situations or second and longs. You want to bring in versatility, and we've kind of touched on this over the past few weeks a little bit, but you start to look at the list of the players and what they were talking about. You got Aiden Hutchinson and DJ Wonnum and Derek Moore, Peyton Turner, Tyler Lacey, Tyree West, Ahmed Hassanin, Levi. There was even talk about Levi Onwuzurike playing that third down edge, that obvious rushing down edge situation. Yeah. And so having the size and the depth, I think this is going to do 3 or 4 different things for us. One is the average pressure time that the Lions had last year. While we were 49, we had 49 sacks. The 2.92 second average time to pressure was the slowest in the National Football League. So what is it that the Lions have been trying to do is add size, add depth, and specifically situational edge rushers that can come in. And look, would you rather have one guy, meaning Aiden Hutchinson and plus one, We had a guy last year, Al-Qadim Muhammad, who left for Tampa after an 11 sack season. Or would you rather have a bunch of different guys that are going to be fresh, given those sub package situations, and you're going to want to bring in guys that can do different things? So when you talk about obvious primary speed and the edge role, I think it's clear that Wonnum's the veteran free agent that was brought in to be the safe guy,
Yeah.
using the terms that were used.
Non-injured Davenport role.
As Davenport was coming around the edge, in slow motion, we're like, what the
In his wheelchair.
what the heck? Yeah.
Didn't want to get hurt.
So, yeah. And so what I think the Lions are doing is with Wonnum is they're bringing in a guy who's really stout against the run. He can get to the quarterback maybe a handful of times this upcoming season, which is fine. But more importantly, we added some depth in the draft with, first and foremost, with Derek Moore. The guy was fantastic, had a 17.5% pressure rate. He had 10 sacks last season, and he showed at the Senior Bowl that he can play against big physical tackles when he knocked a first round pick into oblivion in those highlight reels that we saw over and over again when the Lions selected Derek Moore. So it's the Wonnum kind of obvious pass rushing situations. I don't think Derek Moore is going to be weak against the run, as evidenced by his ability to stand up to a 330-pound beast and knock him on his can. But the opportunity to have depth and rotate players. We heard in the previous weeks, even before that Moore could come in obvious pass rushing situations for Hutchinson, to give Hutchinson a break. And Dan, you talked about this over time, is not wearing the guy out, so that in those third and fourth quarters, much like we talked about Gibbs, you want these guys as fresh as you can get them so that they can make the big plays. And the guy that is just a monster. He was a 5-star out of high school, went to USC, was a real disappointment the first years. He had some personal issues, but I think ultimately, unlike as Dan said, the no turds policy as it applies to Texas Tech quarterback that might be in the supplemental draft, he has proven not to be a turd. He's proven through time, and I read a few articles about him, interviews with him, and he seems to be a really decent guy. But more importantly, he's 6'5.5" with an 85.5-inch wingspan. And his productivity in college was modest. But the same thing happened, I think, here with a certain quarterback who was a 5-star quarterback that was looking to go to the University of Michigan. He went to Alabama, transferred to USC, and ended up being, a 5th-round draft pick. USC, under their current head coach, has had some real problems developing talent. And so I'm gonna push the I believe button here and say that with the coaching that Anthony Lucas is gonna have, I think that we have a reasonable opportunity here to develop a major diamond in the rough. And he was projected to be about the 110th player coming up in the draft. And so he ended up being an undrafted rookie free agent for the Lions and a major steal. And we did give him a good sign on. The last couple guys I'll mention, and then we'll kind of dig into this a little bit more, is the draft pick from last year from Boise State, Ahmed Hassanin, and Tyree West. They're both going to be what I'll call fighting an uphill battle in trying to, one, make the roster. Number two, and the Lions are going to be putting a lot of these guys at risk. If everybody's healthy, and you end up having to cut guys to put them on the practice roster things. We got lucky last year with Hassanin because of the injury, and we're able to keep him and help him develop over the course of this past year. And I think Tyree West is going to be the same. But West and Hassanin are going to be battling these top guys to say, one, I need a few snaps. Kareem Muhammad got some snaps and made the most of them. And so, what's going to end up happening is as this unit gels, and Dan's going to go into detail on this. This is something that he's talked a lot about, is where the Lions rank defensively and how this defensive front, with the combination of the switch schematically from a 4-2 or from a 4-3, traditional 4-3-4 to a 4-2-5, how is this defensive front going to impact the overall defense and our ability to be a top 10 team this year defensively? So Dan, over to you, brother.
Yeah, Chris mentioned it in the chat and brought it up. We'll cover it next week from the mini camp review. But Lucas got into a scrap with Cochran today, and I guess he's like a bigger version of Marty LaPointe from like the '90s Red Wings, right? He's going to be a pest. Martin LaPointe, yes. I called him Martin.
Yeah,
whatever.
of course.
Marty,
He's
if you're
French
nasty.
Canadian.
Yeah.
I know. I'm from Ohio. I'll just make it up. But anyway, he's a pest, it looks like. So, some of the observations were that, him and Cochran got into it, and it went over a couple plays. Cochran came out and was actually throwing haymakers, I guess, and swinging at him. But then afterwards, he's like the dude, he chirps at everybody. He tries to get you in your head, and it was in a, like, I don't want to say in a loving way he was saying that, but he wasn't saying it like this guy's a total jackhole. It's just saying it. That's his style, and he's, is very effective at it, and it's good for the opposing linemen. Because I guess he was also getting in the ears of Manu and Sorsdal. So, which then also kind of tells you where he's at in the rotation right now, But, to your point, all this extra depth and length is huge because, we've had one guy step up, 3 of the last 4 years at that end opposite Hutch who produced. This year we may not have a single guy. It could be a rotation.
Yeah.
I'm looking at there's 8 guys at defensive end right now, and I think the last 2 guys are Lucas and Eric O'Neill are fighting for that 7th defensive end spot. Maybe there's 6, but I think they keep 7 if they have that much talent there, to be specialty, like you said. And that allows them to go into these other versions of their defense. We've been hearing in the camp, in the OTAs and again today that Tyler Lacey has become, I guess, the big edge. Like when they go to a 5-man front, he's becoming the defensive end on the outside opposite Hutch as that 5th player.
The guy they had hoped Davenport would be, right?
Yeah, right. And as they switch more to a 5-2, 4 or maybe a 4-2-5, whichever, it's, as you mentioned, this defense is going to be extremely versatile. All 4 layers. We've heard it through OTAs, heard it again in minicamp. The big themes are competition amongst the players and at the positions and versatility. Those are the 2 biggest themes on this defense that have come out of OTAs and minicamp so far. And you have to have that, right? Because it allows you to have next man up mentality. It allows you to plug and play guys and hopefully not see a major reduction in play.
Right.
Obviously you go from a Pro Bowler, like you have in the 2 safeties that were gone, that drops down. But hey, that was one of the big themes. Harper played pretty well. He wasn't perfect, but I guess it came out. I didn't know this. He had never played safety before. Last year was the first year that kid had ever played safety in his life, and he adapted pretty well. And this year he's got 2 veterans in front of him, and Azine and Clark, who, by all accounts, sounds like he is just
Clark made an interception today. There was
yes.
This is the other thing in minicamp, and of course we'll go more in depth. It was like I think there was 3 picks today and 2 almost picks. And Jimmy Rolder,
tons of balls they got their hands on too.
Yeah, Rolder made a nice pick, and what they say, could have been a pick 6. And Clark had
Amaris
another.
Brown, the UDFA cornerback, also had a pick. Yeah, and it's funny they got each quarterback. It was a trifecta,
right?
Rolder got Teddy, Brown got Altman, and who was the other one? Was it Strickland? Was it Strickland?
Strickland got one.
Oh, Clark.
Yep.
Clark. No. Clark.
Clark got one.
He got Goff.
Nice. Yeah.
So
I love this, and I love that you guys are both touching on Lucas. The one thing that did come out of Calvin Sheppard's presser, he called him a game wrecker. And I know sometimes OTAs, mini camps, there's some glorious verbiage that's thrown around. But Sheppard, he definitely put a pin on Lucas and talked about him being a game wrecker. What about listen, we're talking about the versatility on these guys. Levi Onwuzurike is somebody that are we just like whatever we get out of him would be happy at this point, because as long as he's healthy. I mean, he feels like he's taken that Marcus Davenport role from last season. It's like as long as he can stay healthy, but then when he got healthy, it was like, nah, you know.
I mean, let's be honest, 5 months ago, this guy wasn't even going to be on the roster.
Right.
But then all of a sudden they found his contract told. It's like, hey, we've got him for another year.
Got a body.
You know, so I mean, you know, he's kind of like that quarter you find in the pocket of your winter coat. You're like, yeah, I can probably use this and spend it somewhere, but you know, maybe not. Maybe I'll just put it in a drawer.
But he is repping with the second team right now. So
yeah, he is getting reps to the second team. But you know, I think it came out today when they did their situational drills. The defensive line had a very unique combination. It was, and it could be because of the situation too, because I think it was like 8-yard line or something like that, 45 seconds left, you know, 2 timeouts, more of a passing type situation, which was weird, but it was Hutch, McNeil, Wingo at the other D tackle, which, you know, he's a little bit more of a pass rusher than he is big run stuffing guy. And then they had, I don't remember who they had on the other edge. Oh, it was Peyton.
Peyton Turner.
Peyton Turner. Yeah, Peyton Turner.
Turner was the starter at the other one. So they kind of had a little bit of an athletic D-line out there, right? Which was interesting because you would expect, well, you know, maybe we're not going to get Tyleek on, you know, they've got to go 97 yards in 45 seconds. They're probably not going to put Tyleek in there to rush, right? But the fact that Turner was out there and not Wonnum or Barnes, or not Barnes, Wonnum or Moore, was kind of interesting to me. So, but you know, and we spent tons of time. We're talking about the defense. I mean, the offense is there too, but you know what? They had a bad day today, but you know, they are the known factor in this team. Outside of that offensive line, there's very little changes on that offense. So we know what we should expect. So I mean, that's kind of why we've been focusing on the defense, because it had so much upheaval, so many questions, still lots of questions on it. But, you know, it feels like we're getting answers, you know, and maybe not the best answers yet, but we're getting answers as to you know, who's going to be where and what roles they're going to play. And frankly, I'm just curious. I heard Holmes, he did an interview somewhere. I don't know where it was at, but they said we're not done yet with bringing in talent players. And, you know, we posted on X
antennas went up
yesterday,
on that, you know,
yeah. Well, we posted on X yesterday, you know, they've got 91 roster spots because of Hassanin being the international exemption. And they're currently at 89 players, and technically they're at 88 because they haven't put Law on IR yet. So they could add 2-3 guys. So I'll be interested to see if they have any UFL guys in for tryouts this week. You know, AJ Epinesa, he signed with somebody. I don't know who it was, but he's off the market now. But Bosa's still out there. He has not signed. Cam Jordan signed. No, that was Cam Johnson. Jordan Johnson, the Saints guy. Yep. He signed today back with the Saints, which is kind of expected, you know.
I don't know.
You don't want to pick up and move at 38 or whatever he is.
But do you guys think, though, with all these defensive bodies, I kind of like what they're doing. I think everyone's sort of expecting, okay, Hutchinson, we've got the big edge rusher. Now, who do we have on the other side? But if you look at top tier edge rushers in the NFL, name somebody on the other side that is like a consistent, you know, also guy. Like usually that guy's getting single. You can name 2. The guy in
two teams
Steelers.
That have that.
The Steelers
and the Texans.
The Texans, right, which are completely different defenses than ours. Right?
Yeah.
Right? Rams?
Yes.
Now Rams? Yeah. Although, no?
No.
Well,
who's the other guy?
They've got the best guy, but
yeah, like who's so that's they had to get rid of one in order to get that guy. Is sort of it. Right. It's sort of my point. It's like you can't expect that we're going to get
Turner,
Max Crosby and Aiden Hutchinson on the same. Not only does it not work from a financial perspective, but like you're putting all of your eggs in the defensive end basket, whereas like they're looking at it from we've got guys that fit our defense, and we're going to let them play and battle, and we're going to have a great battle that's coming up next month when we actually have training camp, and we're going to see which guy can win that. Brent, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, before that, you made a comment about the salary cap, and I just want to remind everybody that we have about a little over 19 million left in this year's cap, which I think is significant because it's in the top half of the teams in the NFL. So you do have some flexibility there. And then next year, right now, we're about 46.5 million under the cap. And look, we are in a situation where we can add depth and re-sign our players, and we haven't even restructured anybody's contract other than one player. And remember, one of our off-season exercises was to look at the number of players that could have been renegotiated, and we only hit Goff. So the Lions have put themselves in just a fantastic position to where now we can add DJ Reed to that list of players that could be renegotiated to add additional salary cap space to make moves. Now, do I advocate for us to sign some of those long in the tooth guys, high priced veterans? I bemoan this all the time. I'm not a huge fan of adding these guys that are going to be significant hits against the salary cap, and they're going to have very little production. Is Joey Bosa, are the players that are available still in the free agent market going to be able to come in and make an impact positively and beat out these young guys? What I'm sensing from everything that I'm hearing is that the Lions are hungry again. Last year we got away from that. We had a lot of players that were, playing outside of playing below what we were paying them. And what we've done is we've gone with a youth movement. We brought in a lot of youth, and there's fights at practice because when you add that youth and that what the coach used to call, piss and vinegar into it, you're going to see a much more aggressive Lions football team this year, and they're going to play more violently than what we played all of last season. So for me, Chris, back to your question, I love the idea of having competition in depth, but I'm not a huge fan of bringing in, these high-priced veterans unless you truly believe that they're going to come in and make a significant impact. So, my question back to you guys would be the same. Are you sure Joey Bosa or anybody else are going to be able to come in and have the kind of impact that would justify spending those cap dollars that could be better spent in extending Jahmyr Gibbs and extending Laporta and Branch, et cetera. So, you gotta put in the good with the bad there. And as I said last week, we have made our trades. We have made our plays in trades and signing players to these massive extensions. In our core group of players, I'll put them up against anybody with what we have, and we look at the defense and we look at each level of the defense. We have really, really talented players at all levels of the offense and all levels of the defense. So, back at you guys, do you think that, these high priced veterans are worth bringing in at this point?
I have a simple question. What position do we need to upgrade? I can't name one right now. I mean, I could stretch it and say, maybe we could use another cornerback, right? I think safety stacked, linebackers got a lot of competition. I think that's as good as we're going to get. D-line, maybe a D tackle, maybe. I just don't see anywhere that says that just screams after the draft that we need bodies here, and we need to upgrade here. There is so much potential, and it's always potential this time of year. But there's so many opportunities. There's just so many opportunities to improve your roster. And I just, I agree with Brett at this point that's such picked out. The free agent market is so picked over. We're not going to find anybody that's going to help us right now. But I think Brad might be looking at not now, but again, I talked about there's multiple free agent periods, right? You've got the start of free agency. You have after the draft when guys get cut. You got June 1st when some guys get cut, right? And then the next big free agent period is at the end of training camp when veterans get beat out who are high priced and they need cap casualties, and they get beat out by a youngster who's plays special teams. That's, I think, the next point where he's going to be looking for someone that could come in and help us, right? Or if there's injuries somewhere and you need to make a play. So I'm with you, Brent. There's nobody left out there. Yes, maybe we could grab somebody that could be better than our fifth corner or our sixth wide receiver or our fifth safety, or fourth linebacker or whatever. But at what cost though? We have some very good young prospects on our roster right now that fill those voids, and they're cheap.
Guys, I got
we
one.
might have 19 million, but
I got a position that we may need to talk about. And Marcus brings up a good point here. Marcus Newsom, thanks for joining us here live. We appreciate you joining. As always, Marcus says, I'm the odd man out on this, I'm sure. I'm just not sold on Pacheco as RB2. And Vaki just simply can't handle the full-time RB2 role. If we spend, in my opinion, we need a real solidified RB2. Now, I don't know. Is this Demo regret, or listen, Vaki was shouted out today in the press conference from Dan talking about he called him like the pound for pound best athlete on the team, which that's high praise for sure. But I think he doesn't have a lot of reps at RB, so I do agree with Marcus here. He's an outstanding athlete. And has played a lot of safety in college, played a lot of special teams, as an outstanding guy to have on your team. But as a running back, he still, I think, needs some experience and obviously needs to stay healthy. So that's a concern. Guys, running back position and your thoughts on Marcus's comment.
I don't disagree with what he's saying. Pacheco is going to be fine if he stays healthy, right? And Vaki would be a good third running back, or Sailors or Small, whoever. But here's the problem. There's no running backs available. There's literally 18 free agent running backs that are available. And you're talking guys like Joe Mixon, Najee Harris,
injured
Gibson, Nick Chubb,
injured,
Kareem Hunt. There's guys that are left are just the scraps. They were either coming off injury, they're over the hill, they've got warts. There's nobody here. But there could be a UFL running back available. There could be, again, at the end of training camp, you could get a good running back that gets cut. That could be brought in. But let's think of it this way too. We had both Kafka and especially Petzing. They didn't bring any of their running backs with them from their two previous stops.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Arizona had some decent workhorses. Again, injury
cheap
concerns,
options too.
Didn't even make a play for him.
Interesting.
So they decided Pacheco was a guy. And look, Pacheco, that was one of the things from OTAs last week. He did an interview, a media scrum. That dude's added, I guess, something like 10 or 12 pounds of muscle.
Good. Yeah.
So he did not like the way his season ended. He did not like getting injured. I think Tashard Choice talked about him today, about how he loves him. I think the Lions are fully sold on him, and I think they really like Vaki too. They just need to get him on the field. And, and as you said, I agree that we're not sold on Vaki, but he needs to, this is the year, going into year 3 into year 4, that seems to be when Brad Holmes basically says he cuts bait after year 3 if they don't show anything. So,
Marcus, kudos to you, brother, for the same comment that I think we've been having the same debate. And that is that, I frankly thought the Lions were going to draft a running back. I think Vaki is an injury waiting to happen. He gets injured every year so far. And look, if we go back to the Pacheco 2022 and 2023, we're talking about a guy with 4.6, 4.9 yards per carry. He's been banged up the past couple of years. He's focused on strengthening his body. And so I do think Pacheco could be a solution. If he gets injured, call up Kareem Hunt from that guy. Father Time just does not seem to. He's still 4.5 yards a carry.
I'm telling you though,
it's
right
crazy.
now, Pacheco last year, the hidden issue with the Chiefs, who, by the way, missed
Offensive
the playoffs
line.
too. Their interior offensive line were the absolute worst duo in the NFL when it came to ratings. They sucked. They were
Yep.
terrible.
Yep.
So,
Anyway.
All right, guys.
speaking of something that sucks.
Oh, God. We do appreciate, before we roll to our final segment of the evening, which is Know Your Enemy, and tonight up will be the NFC North champion, Chicago Bears. It's really weird to even say that in one sentence. But first, we want to shout out JD for Life. Thank you for joining us again. What up, though? We appreciate you joining us for sure. So let's start it off, boys. Let me just say that this Know Your Enemy segment's got a little spicy online. So if we got any Bears fans out there on replay or live, go ahead and jump in. We're all for it. We're here for it, and we've been here for it all last week with Vikings fans and the week prior with Packers fans. They just they love to disagree with us, let's just say. And listen, we're here for it. We're going to be respectful as always, but it is sports, right? So this is why we talk about it. But anyway, we're going to get into it. Chicago Bears have had some changes, and you guys will get into it here. Let me set the table. They theoretically now, because of the season that they had last season, they are theoretically facing the most difficult schedule in the NFL. They've got 8 games against playoff teams and 11 against teams with winning records from last season. They've got holiday matchups. They're playing on Thanksgiving like we do every year. They're also playing on Christmas. And in spite of that, they have an over-under win total set at 9.5 at FanDuel, which I was like, wow. I think I might do that, even though I'm in the state of Georgia and I don't think I can do that. But whatever. Anyway, let's start with you, Brent. The Bears have spent 2 straight off seasons retooling everything around their young quarterback, who's now on the cover of Madden. Talk to me about Caleb Williams. This team's going to be running through him. They've lost DJ Moore, who always seemed to kill us, except last season he was definitely down, but he's no longer on the team. So now they're leaning on Roma Dunze and obviously the tight end Loveland as well. Talk to me about Caleb Williams and talk to me about the Bears and your thoughts, and then we'll roll it over to Dan.
Caleb Williams is about as accurate as if y'all remember back in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, all the Lions quarterback, the backs that we had, Charlie Batch. He reminds me a lot of Charlie Batch in that he's really not very accurate. Charlie Batch had a great receiving core, and he just never could seem to find the numbers consistently. And Caleb Williams is a guy who's a really good athlete, but we know that careers of really good athletes, you're going to take a pounding, you're going to have injuries, you're going to find yourself on the short end of the stick as it relates to being able to stay healthy through the course of season after season after season by running a lot. He does a lot of awkward things. He jumps. He finds himself in these positions to where I think he's going to be in at risk of getting hurt. Now, accuracy, it goes back to footwork. So, when I was talking about, the ballerina, not just because, I'm not calling him a ballerina, but if the shoe fits, wear it. Right. But the footwork is terrible. That goes to why he is realistically not very accurate. But the Bears offensive line, and Dan's going to dig into this, so I won't do that. I'll let him dig into it. But I will say this. I will say that Chicago had a pretty darn good draft. I was going to go with the draft review first, Dan, and then let you kind of jump into the specifics of the offensive line, because I think it gets to Chris's question. It gets back to, can they protect Caleb Williams? Can they put him in a situation? They've had some change over on the offensive line. So real quick, before I turn it over to you to do that, I'll start with the defensive players that the Bears picked. And I really liked a couple of the players that they picked up. And the Bears defense, for whatever reason, gives us a lot of fits over the years. And Dylan Tinneman, the kid from Oregon, the safety, he is going to be a good one. He truly is a very, very good football player. And then there's a couple sleepers that they picked up later in the draft who had very high ratings for where they were selected, including a young man that I know is near and dear to Chris's heart, good friends with his son, Ben, Jordan Vandenberg. But Malik Muhammad, the corner from Texas, and Keyshawn Elliott, the linebacker from Arizona State. Keep those names in mind as the next year or two kind of develops, because I think those guys could surprise a lot of people. And we've talked a lot about the Lions, getting lucky with undrafted rookie free agents and the value that we got with Abney, et cetera. I think the Bears had a very, very solid draft and they got positions of need and they filled holes where I think it's going to be necessary. Now, I've been on the record as saying that I think the Bears having a very difficult schedule, and let me just quickly run this down. Philadelphia, Green Bay twice, New England, Seattle, Tampa Bay, Detroit twice, Buffalo, and Minnesota twice. I don't know how the Bears are going to be able to win, be over 500 with the schedule that they have. They proved last year they were deeply dependent upon turnovers. They created a lot of those turnovers with players that they lost. And so, I think that time will tell, but my prediction for the Bears, maybe we'll get to that at the end, Chris, but I'll be happy to give it.
Let's hear it. Bring it.
I think they're going to be 8-9 or 9-8.
Wow.
And if Caleb Williams were to get hurt and the offensive line that Dan's going to dig into here, I think the wheels could come off the bus very easily if they don't start winning. If they don't continue to win, because I think that it's tenuous at best. Remember last year at the start of the season how many players didn't like Ben Johnson? And Ben Johnson seemed to endear himself with the players over the course of the year. But we talked about this with Green Bay. And when you start to talk about firing a coach, or you have a coach that's not really well liked or respected by their players, and you're not winning, it can turn ugly. So I think that losing DJ Moore and Swift is not young, as Marcus says here. I think that they're gonna be in a tough situation to try to win the division.
Dan, so the national media keeps telling us that the Bears are the Lions' biggest threat. What are your thoughts?
I think they're nuts.
Really?
The Bears were 11-6 last year in spite of Caleb Williams, not because of Kalen Williams.
Okay.
Right? It was all smoke and mirrors. And I'm going to tell you why. So, as Brent alluded to, these guys had a plus 22 turnover margin last year. They had 33 turnovers and only 11 giveaways. That is unsustainable, especially when 19 of the 23 INTs and 7 of the 10 forced fumbles are no longer on the team. You've replaced them with rookies and free agents that are not nearly as good, or guys coming off injury, than the guys that were producing those turnovers. Maybe it was a system, maybe not, I don't know, but regardless, you're not going to get 33 turnovers again and have that big turnover margin. So that led directly to the second reason they had such a big big win total, and it's because their one-score game record. They were 8-5 in the 13 one-score games they were in, and of those, which is hysterical. I went and pulled this data. So of those, there's 7 definitive ones. 3 of them were against the Vikings, the Steelers, and the Packers, and they beat those teams by 2, 3, and 6 points respectively. Right? Those teams all had winning records. 4 of those wins were against the Giants by 4 points, the Bengals by 5 points, the Commanders by 1 point, and the Raiders by 1 point. Yeah. Smoke and mirrors, dude.
Yep. That's
4 games that you barely beat scrub teams. So a lot of that is because of turnover margin. They get a play and they pulled something out at the end. They're talking about how Caleb Williams has clutch comebacks. He had record 7 fourth quarter comebacks. Well, it's because the defense was giving you the ball at the freaking 30-yard line. Again, he was captain comeback because he was put in a position by the defense to have the offense on the field. It wasn't necessarily him, and even his biggest play of the year, the one that everybody was salivating on, the one that put him on the cover of Madden, was that just absolute atrocious play in the playoffs where he did absolutely everything wrong. The guy literally backpedaled 30 yards, threw a ball blindly off his back foot towards the end zone, and then his tight end, Cole Kmet, just totally two-handed pushed the guy out of the way, and the refs just stood there and ignored it for the touchdown. So, again, they just had a lot of luck, and I'll call it luck last year, and things went their way. That's probably not going to happen this year, and then on top of that, their last place schedule, they were originally last year projected to have the second hardest schedule. They ended up with like between the 4th to 9th easiest schedule because teams that were supposed to be good, like the Commanders and some of these other teams, they didn't pan out. They were below their expected win total, so the Lions were below our win total. Injuries hit us hard. So, they ended up with a real easy schedule. This year they play a first place schedule, so they're going to have a harder time. And, the biggest thing, which Brent's alluded to, I'm not going to do their whole O-line, but the biggest thing is they lost their all-pro center. He
Yep.
retired abruptly.
Huge.
Sound familiar, anyone?
Yeah, I've heard of that. Not an important position, though, right?
Not at all.
Whoops.
Especially because Caleb Williams actually had the first or second most time to throw last year, primarily because he runs around like crazy back there. He just takes off and sprints off running. He's a 1 or 2 read guy, and then he starts running the ball. And he goes to his right the bulk of the time and throws it on the run, and he completes a lot of those passes. But like as Brent said, he does a lot of jumping. He does a lot of throwing it back across his body to the middle of the field. He's been getting away with it. That stuff's not going to last. Now that they've got film of him in Johnson's offense and his tendencies, they're going to make adjustments this year. And the other thing is, Ben Johnson even admitted he had to change his offense. And we know what his offense is how it's supposed to be run. He had to change his offense to fit what Caleb Williams does best, which is basically the dude is like a poor man's Brett Favre. He's a gunslinger who just can heave it down the field. He's not got great accuracy, although Favre was pretty accurate. I've seen Bears fans bring out the ridiculous stat of on-target percentage as saying he's not as bad as his completion percentage says. I'm like, then he doesn't know how to throw the ball with touch, dude. I can throw it right in your chest, but if I throw you a fastball and you're 5 feet away or 5 yards away, you're not going to catch it. So, he has a lot to learn and grow in this system. We know how it's supposed to be run. Goff shows how it's supposed to be run. He's not Goff. Most quarterbacks in the NFL, by the time they reach year 3, they are already set in their patterns. Very few of them can change radically. I think Dak Prescott fixed his mechanics, which helped him get better. And of course, obviously Buffalo's quarterback, Josh Allen, he went from being a total project to turning into one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Could Caleb Williams do that? I don't know. We haven't really seen it. He's regressed at USC, from Oklahoma to USC, he regressed. He improved in some areas last year, regressed in others. But this whole Dahlman for Garrett Bradbury switch out, I think is going to be the key to their roster. Dahlman he was an all-pro for a reason. He was like 6th overall ranked center out of 40, 7th in pass protection, 14th in run protection. Bradbury, who's the replacement, they're identical, except Bradbury's 3 years older, like the same size, 6'3", 300 pounds, but he was 30th last year in overall centers out of 40, 23rd out of 40 in pass, and 35th out of 40 in run. That's a complete downgrade from what Dahlman gave them.
Right.
So, and they have, as Brent mentioned, they got this long kid they brought in. On paper he looks good, but he's a rookie, and how many times can a rookie center come in and control your entire offense and be solid? Maybe in a couple of years he is. I don't see it this year. So all that put together, I just don't see, even if Williams makes incremental improvements, I just honestly don't see the Bears repeating that record. I'm with Brent. I'm probably going to take it down another notch to say they're going to be 7-10, maybe 8-9. I don't see them having a winning record next year.
Yeah, and look, they've lost all these starters off the defense. Both safeties, cornerback. Their C.J. Garner-Johnson played a lot in 3 safety situations. Tremaine Edmonds, who is a staple in their defense, and those guys are a lot of the reasons why they had all the turnovers that they had.
Yeah.
And then offensively, we didn't even talk about this. We talked about it on previous podcasts, but Caleb Williams is second worst completion percentage of all quarterbacks that qualify.
Mr. 58%.
And so you lose your best receiver, DJ Moore, to Buffalo. I'm just not seeing it for the Bears to win the
Bears
division
fans
this year.
looked at it as a positive. They were blaming DJ Moore for basically drops and causing his performance to go downhill.
Well, Rob
never
B1
heard that
says
before.
DJ wasn't a Ben Johnson fit, nor a young QB fit. He's going to be a top 5 wide receiver in his new spot with his ability to freestyle routes and Allen's mobility.
I don't disagree with that.
I mean, Moore's
DJ Moore
still
was
a great player.
He was a great player at Carolina. He goes to Chicago, and first year he was decent. Last year he regressed massively. They're blaming Williams or blaming Moore on Williams' decline. He might be on target, but what's defined as on target? Some rando put it together that does stats. It's like, dude, nobody knows what that means. You're not sharing your algorithm or what your logic is. And we watch the games. I mean, you could put it on target, but if you throw it too hard or you lead them just a little bit too much and they get their hand on it. I mean, I know it's if you could touch it, you should catch it, right? We've been drilled into our heads since, we were kids, right? But sometimes you can't catch it. We've seen Goff throw some stinkers, that have killed us.
Sure.
So,
yeah. It's not always the prettiest ball, but as long as it gets to the guy and it's a catchable ball and it hits him in stride, all the things, it just doesn't feel like he could do that. And I love the points that both you guys brought up. Is it just doesn't feel like that it's sustainable, right? Especially with a harder schedule. It's just you're not going to be able to get all of those turnovers this season when you took the guys off of the field and are no longer on your team that got a lot of those turnovers. And then you replace a ton of that interior offensive line, and now you've got a harder schedule. It just doesn't feel sustainable. I know Caleb's going to make plays at times that people are just going to be like, "Holy, how did he?"
Sure.
And people want to look at him and go, Mahomes, but Patrick Mahomes is far more accurate, and makes far more plays and has a better team around him, I think, quite frankly. And so I think when you look at a harder schedule like that, my pick is I'm going to say 7-10, but I was leaning 6-11. It's just I do feel like they may be near the bottom, if not the bottom of the division this season.
Their core team is not like the Lions have a strong core, right, through their entire team. Anywhere you go, every position there's a strong core. The Bears, their pass rush is suspect. It was not addressed. They lost those playmakers on defensive backfield, and they brought a kid in, but he's a rookie. They brought some other players, and they lost their all-pro center. They brought in a guy like Graham Glasgow, who is not nearly as good as the guy he's replacing.
Not a true center,
the rookie may or may not be ready. They've got they've cornered the market on tight ends. They grabbed Komet, or they have Komet and Loveland, and they grabbed that other kid. But, there's talk they may deal Komet. He might be wanting out, and they may deal him towards the end of training camp, and their wide receivers are unproven.
They're gonna start 4 tight ends, but in their first 9 games, tell me 4 games that they're gonna win: at Carolina, Minnesota, Philadelphia, Jets, at Green Bay, at Atlanta, New England, Seattle, and Tampa.
Minnesota, and who was the other bum team in there? The Titans.
The Jets. Atlanta is the only other one. I mean, the rest of those games, they could conceivably lose all of those games. I mean, at Carolina,
they should beat Minnesota, I would think, because Minnesota's team.
Carolina and Minnesota are winnable, according to
that's that wild card, right? The offense in Minnesota is highly suspect right now, but boy, that defense, whew. Brian Flores, he's going to bring something.
Yeah,
that's true.
Anyway, I just want to throw that back out as their schedule is not exactly easy.
Tough.
No, it's not. It's one of the hardest.
And everybody got better, right? I mean, this is everybody's Super Bowl aspirations are at their highest right now, and every team got better. You look at the Bears, it's like I can't really pinpoint a single position where I say, yeah, that got better. There's a lot of pushes and some minor degradation on their roster from last year. Their O-line with, that's down a little bit. Never addressed the edge position, so that's down. I think they added a little to the interior D-line, so that might be up. DB's definitely down. I know they got guys coming off injury, but look, the amount of they had, I think I pulled the stat, they had 79% of their turnovers, 26 of 33 turnovers are off the roster.
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
That's exactly the point I was making.
And that probably led to 4
Better
or 5
said.
additional wins last year. Directly impacted those and added
Of
those
course
wins.
it did. But they were playing last place teams throughout the NFL, and they're really lucky we're playing the AFC East this year where they get the Jets at Miami. Imagine if they were playing the NFC West or another division that was much stronger than what the AFC East is. They're lucky they got the Miamis, and I think New England's set for a step back, but still I think they'd be favored over the Bears in any game just about that they'd play. But I don't see the Bears winning as many games as last year, and one score games, the amount of turnovers that they lost, and they were so reliant upon it to be in those games. I don't think it looks good for them.
All right, there it is. That is, I guess, the final Know Your Enemy segment. Maybe we'll bring it back, as we get closer to the season. That always gets everybody all whipped up, and we'll have, maybe, injury news for the other teams. That kind of stuff is always going to factor into it. But the consensus here is that the Chicago Bears, we think, are going to go 7-10. And Mike Terry said 7-10 as well from backstage. So there we go, folks. Thanks again for joining us with Lions Gray Mains. Before you jump, make sure you go down, hit subscribe, hit like, all of that good stuff, and it keeps the show powered up and back every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. And we will see, and you'll be able to hear us next week, same bat channel, same time. And as always, when we close the show, we love to say, Go Lions!
Busted outside left. Jameer down to 10. Jameer to the 5. Jameer to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Hand off Berry. Search to the left side. Breaks a tackle. And he will take it in. Touchdown!
Touchdown, Detroit Lions! That's what I'm talking about! It is caught. Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Amon-Ra.